First, let me start by saying good afternoon. Happy to provide you with some updates today. But I first want to remind everyone that the city of Birmingham is still under a pandemic health crisis. So I want you to not forget that social distancing is still important. Washing your hands and using hand sanitizer is still important. Wearing your facial cover, which is law in the city of Birmingham, is still important, and that you want to protect yourself. Cases are still going up in the city of Birmingham and Jefferson County area and in the state of Alabama. So please don't let your guard down. Now, as it relates to the update of last night's curfew, as of Monday night, there were 12 arrests. We had no reported cases of vandalism or looting or fires. And we've also revised the curfew. We wanted to make sure that our homeless community are exempt from that curfew. In addition to that, effective at 11 this morning, we have expanded the curfew to forbid gatherings and parades and marches of demonstrations throughout the day on any public property or public street because we are in the middle of a emergency order due to civil unrest. This curfew will continue as long as we see as a need for it. In addition to that, we've all watched the slow and methodical work to remove the monument in Linn Park. I've been moved by the outpouring, very moved by the outpouring of support, including offerings from everyday citizens to help pay for any costs. And I want to thank our residents. I want to thank the community for that outpouring. This action is a very, very powerful symbol of our city's desire to move beyond the pain of the past and unite into the future. And so, before I close out, I have a partner who engages and supports the work the mayor's office does every single day on behalf of the citizens, and that's the city council. I'm happy to work with this council. They provide a platform to and service to their residents as well as I do. Here with me today is Councilwoman Crystal Smitherman, who wants to give a few remarks before we do any questions.
Thank you, Mayor Woodfin. I'll be very brief. To the constituents of Birmingham, I want to say I'm proud of you. You have used your right to assemble, to have your voice be heard. We stand with you in true equity, justice, and fairness. Because there is this ongoing fight against systemic racism that needs to be diminished. And I want you to know, as a city, that we heard your voice, that your voice does count. And for the young people, I'm so proud of you, because we have to be reminded that the civil rights movement was being led by the young people. And so I just want you to know that we're standing with you against racism, that we've heard you. I would like to thank Mayor Woodfin for making sure that that Confederate monument came down, because it's not fair for a majority black city to be reminded every day of a history that has been dealing with the oppression against black people. So I want you to know that on behalf of the City Council and District 6 office, we are there for you, and that I love you, my black people. We are here for you, and that we will always have your backs. Thank you, Mayor Woodfin.
Just a brief note. I've got some points I want to share about in anticipation of some questions about the monument. One is this: we will not disclose the location of the monument due to security reasons and to preserve the health and safety of the public, as well as to make sure there is no more damage caused to the monument. In addition to that, under the current state of emergency, the partner companies working on the removal of that monument will not be identified due to security reasons and to protect those employees. You may ask of the cost of the removal from the city. The cost to the city to remove the monument is $1. Now, any donations made to the city for removing the statue, any donations made to the storage of that statue, and or other costs that may develop will require that we go to the council to formally receive those funds. And one last note, we are in discussions with other organizations and leadership in the state and with the state about where the monument may eventually go. And so to that, I want to thank everyone involved, and I want to thank everyone for making sure Monday night we had a peaceful night, and we will continue with our curfew to make sure that we protect first people, two, our first responders, and three, equally important in this matter, is the property of residential as well as commercial property. With that, Rick, open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll begin with Alan Collins with WBRC. Alan, do you have a question?
Mr. Mayor, I guess to begin with, is there a great deal of frustration dealing with the monument, the fact that Birmingham years ago wanted to remove it, pay for it, to avoid all this, then all of a sudden now we're told we just pay a one-time fine and can remove it? Is there some frustration dealing with that?
Alan, there's no frustration. As I said, if I can just be totally honest and open with you as well as the public, and balancing between the cost of civil unrest versus the cost of a civil fine, I think most would agree with me. The city should pay the cost of that civil fine to make sure that there is not any more unrest in our city.
Mickey with WIAT CBS 42. Do you have a question for the mayor?
Yes. Is there a timeline for the curfew? Do we know how long it will be in effect?
There's no timeline for the curfew. Listen, we know. I think there are a minimum of about 100, a minimum of 110 plus cities, and I think my number is low. About at least 110 cities across the nation that have some form of protest, civil disobedience. But we've also seen in a lot of these cities where things have gotten out of hand. We do believe there's an element here where with those who attempt to plan things, possibly their process gets hijacked and then it becomes either violent or with looters or anarchists attempting to only destroy and burn things. So we want to make sure that element never has the position to come into our city again. And so as it relates to when this will end, we'll determine that when we know more information and receive more information about how it's going, not only in our community but across the nation. In addition to that, as late as last night, we received a bomb threat on the actual monument site as late as Monday night. And we should also know across the nation there's been some consistent soft targets as early as Saturday, which includes police precincts, etc. And so we need to, in commercial spaces where there's retail, such as malls. So we need to be vigilant in how we go about protecting, again, our citizens as well as our first responders. In addition to that, our property within our city. And so when that date is going to be determined, the public and the media will be the first to know.
All right, our next question, Papke, WBTM 13. Do you have a question for the mayor?
Yeah, Mayor, you announced this morning about the Birmingham Business Relief Fund. Can you talk more about how much money right now will be made available to these businesses, and when and how these businesses can obtain that funding?
Well, first, let me start with the partners that make up this this relief fund. As of yesterday, a relief fund was created to support those businesses that receive some form of damage due to those looters and others who intentionally cause property damage to a lot of the business owners within our central business district. These organizations that have done a collaborative effort to build this fund are Rev Birmingham, Urban Impact, the Community Foundation, the City of Birmingham, and other community partners. Those who are seeding money, the seed money comes from one of our partner organizations in the community that I want to send a huge thank you to, called Spire. Now, this fund is being held at the Community Foundation, and I want to encourage those who want more information or who have been impacted by Sunday night's event to receive resources to visit the Communities Foundation website to learn and have more information. In addition to that, I believe, if I'm correct, you can go to Community Foundation, BirminghamAL.gov/curfew.
Okay, our next question, ABC 3340, are you on the line? ABC 3340, are you on the line? Let's move to Birmingham Times. Birmingham Times, Erica, are you there? Is the Associated Press on the line? All right, I'll open it up. Has anybody not asked a question? We've got time for about 3 more questions. Has anybody asked a question that they have not had an opportunity to yet? Go ahead, Sheila. Go ahead, Sheila. Go ahead and ask your question. Yes, please do.
Yeah, I want to ask the mayor, what message does he have for young people? We notice there are a lot of young people downtown. They're really restless. Lots going on. So can he give us a direct message for them, please?
Thank you, Sheila, for that question. My direct message, and I spoke to this yesterday, but it's the art and the science of protesting and organizing. I start with this. Strategy is important. And I think part of the strategy for me is understanding the history of protesting and successful protests, even right here in the city of Birmingham, that we as a community, even in today's standards, would dare define as the bedrock of a successful movement. That movement was filled with young people, but those young people had an actual leader. Turns out that leader was young as well. Here, our local leader, we had Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth. Across the nation, we had a national leader who was young as well, Dr. Martin Luther King. And I think those 2 gentlemen came together here in Birmingham, and they had a very successful strategy. Part of that strategy is identifying 4 things. The first thing is very important, which I think our young people are very good at doing, which is identifying the actual injustice. If we look at last Monday, the injustice is very easy to identify. A white male officer presses his knee on the neck of an unarmed black man who's calling out for his mom, who, by the way, was already deceased. So that's important in that first step to identify the injustice. But the second step is equally important, which is negotiation. And my message to the young people is very important. Know what you want from the injustice, but it's important to negotiate with the people that can actually make that difference, to make that injustice to turn that injustice into justice. And so talking to elected officials like Crystal Smitherman, the city councilor, talking to your state representatives and your state senators, talking to your congressional delegation and other elected officials, as well as pastors and anyone else who has a platform and an influence where you allow an audience to say these things need to happen. The third thing is all about self-discipline, meaning when you join in and participate in a protest or in a rally or in a march, you have to have the self-discipline to engage in behavior that's only bringing attention to the injustice. Any other behavior, i.e. what we saw in our city Sunday night, the looting, the burning, the breaking of glass and damaging buildings, that is the opposite of self-discipline, and it gets you off the message of the injustice. Again, in this situation being George Floyd. And then the fourth thing I would say to the young people is direct action. Direct action should be taken if that second thing, which is negotiations, fail, and 3, not your having self-discipline, you're not getting the return you want from the injustice. Those 4 things are important. Identifying the injustice, negotiating, 3, having the self-discipline to stay on message, and 4, direct action. I believe if our young people engage and do those 4 things, then the change they want to see, whether it's in Minneapolis, in Birmingham, in any city across the nation, here in our country, even at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, if we do those 4 things, young people, you can have any change you want.
Okay, we are running out on our time. I can't remember. AL.com, did I call you? I apologize if I did. I don't believe I called Howard with AL.com. Are you on the line? Do you have a question?
Thanks, Rick. Mayor Howard Complet, AL.com. From what we understand, there's a time capsule in the Capitol Monument. Can you confirm that? And so, can you say what size?
Yeah, here's a short version. The city of Birmingham never had any intent to destroy this monument, only to remove it. And that intent is important because as an administration, even when we disagree with some laws, there's a way to go about that disagreement. And so, based on a destruction already being given to the monument, the city of Birmingham doesn't want to cause any more. Speaking to your question, at the base and what's left of this, everything that we took down will be preserved.
All right. I'm going to, one last question. Anybody else? One last question, and we will have to wrap this up.
Yes, Lisa Crane.
Okay, Lisa Crane, go ahead. You were the first one out. Lisa with WVTM. Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you. Mayor, do you feel like the removal of the monument so quickly helped keep things in check last night and will do the same in the next coming days?
I do. I had a conversation with my mom and one of my mentors, and I've had this conversation with several people about why did I go into that crowd at the height of their anger and frustration. And I've been watching over the last 6+ days in other cities where you've had this direct confrontation between people and residents in the street and police. I thought it was important as a leader and a partner in the community to, if you're listening to what they're saying and their angst and their frustration and their anger, is there a way to solve for it? I believe their acts unlawful. They shouldn't have done it. At the same time, I can understand why as it relates to the statute. Now, everything else, 100% unacceptable, shouldn't have been done. By the way, we're still looking to bring a lot of people to justice. As it relates to the actual statute, I thought it was important to have a direct conversation with them. In that conversation, I thought it was important to reach a compromise in the sense of going back to the state and telling them where we are as a city, that the city of Birmingham has had enough history of unrest. This statute, the continuation of this statute being in the park, will cause more unrest. Therefore, we need to remove it. I think being in a position, honoring saying that I would do this in a short period of time, has squashed the potential for more unrest in our city. And I believe going forward, we still need to have the curfew in place, because we know that there's a certain element, unfortunately, in our community and in other cities across the nation where people are hijacking these events. And if those who put on these events aren't being responsible in a position to protect the city they live in, or don't have the resources to do it, or call them out, or help us bring those people to justice, then we have to continue this curfew. I want to thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to give an update. And everyone, please remain safe. Thank you.